Okay, ma'am. So today we will start our session. We'll wait 5 more minutes. Okay, ma'am. So in the last class, we have discussed about the PN junction diode and its operation under forward bias, reverse bias, open circuited PN junction, how depletion the temperature effect, resistance, the capacitance effects on the diode, and also some of the breakdown mechanisms, etc. So today we are going to see some more topics from the first unit. We will revise the brief concept of few more topics. In that, the first one will be rectifiers. May I know all of you, is the screen visible? Is it clear? Okay, ma'am. Okay. So today's topic is the diode applications as rectifiers. So there are many many applications of diodes. The first and foremost application, which is the how. See, diode conducts in forward direction. That is, when a diode is conducted in forward bias, then it will act as an on switch. Why it will act as an on switch? Because the current will be flowing through the diode will be high. High in the sense it is in the order of milliamps. Okay, so the maximum current flows through the diode when it is connected in forward bias. So we can say that it can be operated as an on switch. And when the same diode, when its polarities are reversed, that is when it is connected in reverse bias condition, then a very less amount of current flows, which is in the order of microamps. Okay, so almost all low, or ideally we can say that it is zero. The diode under reverse bias will be operated as off switch. Okay, this is the first and foremost application of a diode. Apart from switch, we have other applications such as rectifiers, clippers, and modification of a diode, or adding an extra layer, we call it as a transistor. Then modifying a transistor, that is BJT, we call it as a FET, etc. All comes from the diode structure. Okay, so now we take the first application of the diode as rectifiers. Then we will move on to the next application. So what is a rectifier? First I want to give a description about rectifiers. What is the meaning of rectifier? Rectifying what? Rectifier means rectify. It rectifies something, but rectifies what? Suppose there is an input given to a diode, then the output is modified version of the input. Suppose the input given to a diode is sine wave, then a rectified version of the input is available at the output. That is a brief definition. If I want to say about rectifier is, it converts a sinusoidal waveform or an AC waveform into a DC form. Okay, means we are converting an AC input to a DC output. Okay, so what is the need for us to convert a signal from AC to DC? That is the first question we need to understand. Then our rectifier's concept is very simple. Okay, a small circuit which has a resistor and a diode, that's all. That makes a rectifier. Before that, learning the circuit, we need to understand what is the need for us to convert a signal from AC to DC. Okay, see, in our house, on our household applications or day-to-day applications, we get 230 volts 50 hertz AC signal. Okay, now that signal cannot be directly given to our electrical or electronic devices which are present in our homes. There are many devices: TV, fridge, washing machine, etc. So all these devices does not work directly with the 230 volts AC supply. Okay, they work with the 10 volts DC, 20 volts DC. That depends on their ratings and power consumption. Okay, so we can't take a special circuit and like we have in our labs and all. We can't use these rectifiers each and everywhere. Okay, so what this rectifier does is, the rectifier take a AC input that and converts it into required DC output. This DC output is given as a input signal to the appliances. Okay, so that is the important role of a rectifier. There is a very much need for us to convert an AC signal to a DC signal. Okay, so power supply, we generally say it as a power supply unit. Okay, but actually in previous days we used to have some stabilizer kind of things to get. And one more thing is, our 230 volts is always fluctuating and it has many phases, one single phase, double phase, three phase, like that. But we don't, our electrical appliances will be damaged if you get that fluctuating signal to the appliances directly. So we want a constant DC voltage. We will see the operation how an AC signal is converted into DC signal. See, my a rectifier is a no voice, but my speaker is on, ma. Speaker is on. I'll be a bit louder. Is it audible now? Okay, now it is clear. Okay, ma. Okay, so rectifier, see the definition of a rectifier. A rectifier is an electrical device that converts alternating AC which periodically reverses direction. Yes, a sine wave has a positive peak as well as a negative peak, to direct current DC which is in only one direction, and a process is known as rectification. This process of converting AC to DC is called as rectification. Okay, ma. Okay. Next, a rectifier is a circuit which offers low resistance to the current in one direction and high resistance in the opposite. Resistance means high current. Okay, we'll see the operation. You will better understand this resistor. Next, sinusoidal unidirectional flow and not pure DC. Pulsating DC. Yes. Means rectifier converts an AC signal, that is sinusoidal signal to unidirectional signal or a signal. Okay. But not exactly a DC. DC means just a straight line on the X and Y axis. Okay, that is not available for us. Using pure DC, we need to use a filter. It is written here. Filter converts unidirectional flow into pure DC. Now also it is breaking, Amma. Is it not clear now also? Sorry for moving to the next slide. Half wave and bridge rectifier. God. Is it audible and visible now, ma? Sorry for the disturbance. There was a network issue. Is it okay now? Okay, ma. Sorry. So we'll continue the session. Okay. So now we will see the type of rectifiers. Generally, the rectifiers are classified into three types: half wave rectifier, full wave rectifier, and then bridge rectifier. Now we will see one by one how each rectifier is operated. Now we will see the half wave rectifier. As the name implies, half wave rectifier. It will rectify only a half of the input waveform. That is, the input, if it is a sinusoidal waveform, only positive half of the waveform is rectified. Okay, see, in half wave rectification, either the positive or negative half cycle of the AC wave is passed while the other half is blocked. Because, okay, you want me to explain previous slide? I'll explain, no problem. See, in this slide, I have only explained about what is a rectifier, what actually it does, and following the rectifier, which block will be there. See, a rectifier converts a sine wave into a pulsating DC. That is not pure DC. It will be a zigzag kind of thing. Actually, input is a sine wave, but output we need to get a DC. How a DC signal look like? It looks like a straight line. But we won't get a straight line if we use only rectifiers. followed by a rectifier, you need to use a filter. Filter will convert this unidirectional flow signal into a pure DC. So this combination of a rectifier unit and a filter unit on a whole makes a power supply unit. Okay, so you're generally a stabilizer kind of thing that we see in our olden times. Now all the electrical appliances have a built-in stabilizer in it, which will convert AC to pulsating DC, and pulsating DC is converted to pure DC internally, that we can't see in like our appliances are built-in stabilizers in power supply units, etc. Okay, so rectifier converts AC into a pulsating DC, not pure DC, and followed by rectifier we have a filter where it converts unidirectional flow, that is pulsating DC, to a pure DC. Okay, so this is what we discussed in this slide. And next we have seen the types of rectifiers. There are three types of rectifiers: half wave, full wave, and bridge rectifier. We will see one by one the operation of each. So first one we are going to see about the half wave rectifier. In half wave rectification, only one part, half means only half, like sinusoidal, if a sinusoidal signal is given as the input signal, then either positive part or negative part is rectified. Only one part is allowed at the output side. And because only one half of the input waveform reaches the output, it is very inefficient if used for power transfer. Yes, because only 50% of the input is taken and rectified, then we say that efficiency is also very less. Okay, see in this slide, just see the circuit. This circuit looks typical for you because here we are using a step down transformer. Okay, for all of you, see the circuit diagram. Input here, this structure is nothing but a step down transformer, and to this primary winding we have given an AC supply or AC input to the primary windings, and this AC supply is like coupled with the secondary windings. Both primary and secondary windings are coupled, and this is a step down transformer. Means stepping down means like lowering the input voltage, and how much it is stepping down, that is depends on the transformer their properties. Okay, which transformer ratings and all, it depends on the ratings. Next on there you can see in the step down transformer there are marked as A and B. Okay, to A we have connected a diode in forward direction, and to the cathode of the diode we have connected a resistor. This resistor is nothing but a load resistor. Okay, output is taken across load resistor. Okay, now below this circuit diagram you are seeing our input signal. This is nothing but our AC voltage input signal, and this is nothing but a sine wave. So now when this sine wave is given as input to the step down transformer, what happens? How we are getting only positive peaks as the output. This is nothing but half wave rectification. You can see on the right side the current waveform and the voltage waveform, where only positive peaks are present. The negative peaks are suppressed. You must have wondered where these negative peaks have gone. See, where these negative peaks have gone. See here, when during positive half cycle, what happens? Point A will be positive and point B is negative bias. Like since point A is positive supply, your diode will be forward biased, because positive to the P type or anode, then diode will be forward biased and diode readily conducts. So during positive half cycle, the diode is conducting and the current flows in the external circuit and output is taken across the load resistor. So directly you are getting the positive half cycle as the output. But what happens during negative half cycle? B. And negative to anode is nothing but making the diode reverse bias. So when reverse does not conduct and it acts as an open circuited PN junction. So when it is open circuited, output across the load resistor and flows through the diode and obviously in the external circuitry. Okay, so output across the load will be equal to 0. So hence during negative half cycle, output is equal to 0. You can see here. Okay, only during positive half cycle, since diode is conducting, as it is we are getting the output waveform as a positive half cycle, neglecting some drops, voltage drops and all. Okay, and during negative half cycle, since diode is reverse biased, 0. Okay, like that it repeats. As long as input is available, output is obtained as only positive peaks. Okay, same thing is here. The definition of a half wave rectifier: the process of removing one half the input signal to establish a DC level is called half wave rectification. In half wave rectification, rectifier conducts current only during positive half cycle of the input AC signal. Negative half cycle is suppressed. You can also see here AC voltage across the secondary terminals AB changes its polarity after each half cycle. Yes, that is the specialty of this transformer. During positive half cycle, point A is positive and point B is negative. During negative half cycle, point A is like the polarity will be reversed, and during negative half cycle, the terminal A is negative. Yes, terminal A is negative and B is positive. So diode is reverse bias and conducts no current. So current flows through the diode during positive half cycle only. Okay, and in this way the current flows through load RL in one direction only. Okay. See here in the diagrammatical animation way, you can also see this. So this arrow direction in the circuit shows the direction of electron flow. See here, during positive half cycle only output is positive peak, but during negative half cycle there is no output. See here, during positive half cycle there is a direction which shows the flow of electrons. You can observe, there is no transformer in this circuit for easy understanding. But in examination, if you are writing this answer, you need to draw the circuit which has a transformer also. That is nothing but step down transformer. During positive half cycle, since diode is forward bias and it is conducting, you are getting the output as it is. But during negative half cycle, diode is reverse bias, so there is no current flow, so output is equal to 0. This diagram also shows the same. So the output DC voltage of a half wave rectifier can be calculated with the following two ideal equations. So the total RMS, AC RMS value is nothing but V peak by 2. The maximum peak voltage of the sine signal divided by 2, and the VDC value is nothing but the peak by pi. Okay, the value of pi, V peak by pi. So half wave rectifier, we have many disadvantages. Generally, we don't prefer half wave rectifier because 50% of the input is being removed. Okay, we may have some important information, so that will be lost. Only 50% of the input is rectified, which is not a recommended one. So it has many disadvantages. So here the pulsating current in the output contains AC components whose frequency is equal to supply frequency. So filtering is needed, yes. And the AC supply delivers power only during half cycle only. So output is low. Now we will go with the full wave rectification or not. Okay, ma'am. Which slide you want me to explain? Operation, ma'am? Yes. See here, I am explaining the half wave rectifier operation once again just to go through this. See the circuit, ma'am? Here, the circuit is designed with only one component, that is a diode, along with a resistor and a step down transformer. Here, a transformer is used since we are giving AC supply. Okay, so AC supply is coupled to the DC components like small. Here we are using is a step down transformer. Step down transformer in the sense this AC 230 volts that we are getting in our normal like our homes. So the 30 volts is given as input to this circuit, and this transformer will reduce the 230 volts to some value, like that value will be decided by the transformer rating that we are using. Okay, so step down transformer, and this transformer is the secondary of the transformer is connected to the diode directly, and the diode cathode is connected to a load resistor where output is taken. Now during positive half cycle, see the diagram, input waveform. Here sine wave, generally sine wave is taken as an AC input. So during positive half cycle, what happens? The polarity is here at the secondary of the transformer. You can see on this slide there is marked as B. So A will be positive maintained at positive potential, and B will be maintained at like less positive than A. So A is positive, so this 2 is connected to anode of the diode. So P to P, positive anode, P and diode. So diode will be forward biased. Okay. Now when the diode is forward biased, we know that the current will be flowing in the order of milliamps, and diode readily conducts. So this total positive half cycle will be passed through the diode, and the same will be taken across the load resistor. Okay, so during positive half cycle, since diode is conducting, we are getting output as it is, and we are eliminating some diode drops, resistor drops, etc. So output is equal to input during positive half cycle. Now what happens during negative half cycle is, during negative half cycle, your point A at the secondary of the transformer is maintained as negative potential then compared to B. Okay, so negative given to anode of the diode, which makes diode as reverse bias. Okay, if diode is reverse bias, it acts as an open circuit. It does not conduct. And if it does not conduct, no current flows in the external circuit. So output is equal to 0. So during negative half cycle, here you can see in the diagram output waveform, output is equal to 0 during negative half cycle, and during the next positive half cycle, again it is equal to the input as it is. But like that it goes on. During positive half cycle, since diode is conducting, output is equal to input, and during negative half cycle, since diode is reverse biased, output is equal to 0. Okay, so since it is conducting for only 50% of the input, its efficiency is very low, and this rectifier is not at all recommended. Okay, so is it clear, ma? Wave rectifier, that will be more easy if you have understood this. Shall we move? Okay. Next. So now we are moving into full wave rectifier. Flow load is in same direction, both input AC. This can be achieved with two diodes. working alternatively. For one half cycle, one diode supplies current to the load, and for next half cycle, another diode works. See the circuit diagram of a full wave rectifier, ma? Here also we have a transformer, but this transformer is called as a center tapped transformer. I'll explain what is. First, see the components that are used. Here we are using two diodes. One diode conducts for one half cycle and the other diode conducts for another half cycle. And output is same, which is taken through the load resistor RL. And here center tapping means we are tapping the transformer secondary to the load resistor in such a way that during positive half cycle, the point A will be positive, like positive and negative, and during negative half cycle, the polarity of the secondary transformer will be reversed. Okay. For during positive half cycle, D1 will be conducting, and during negative half cycle, D2 will be conducting. You will understand. Okay. Now what happens? The center the polarity at point A is positive with respect to point B. So positive and connected to the anode of diode D1. So diode D1 is forward biased and point B is placed at a potential negative potential to A. So diode D2 is reversed biased. And you will get the output across the load resistor RL only due to the diode D1. Only due to the current flowing through diode D1, and the direction of the current is also shown in the circuit diagram. You can see here. Okay, as this is same as our half wave rectifier. So during positive half cycle, output is equal to input, and this is because of diode D1. And now see during the negative half cycle, what happens? Point A, since this is a property of a center tapping, it reverses the polarity. So during negative half cycle, point A is placed at negative potential. So since point B is positive potential and positive potential connected to anode of D2, so diode D2 is forward biased half cycle. Okay, so because of this diode D2 conducting, we are getting current. The current is flowing through diode D2, and the same current is flowed RL, and you are taking the output across the load RL, which is also in the same direction as when diode D1 is conducting. So during negative half cycle also we are getting a positive peak, that is because of diode D2 conducting. Okay, so this repeats. So this is different. In a sense, with a half wave rectifier, you get the half wave output here. But in full wave rectifier, we are getting the negative halves also as positive peaks. This is happening because of center tapping. That is the advantage of center tapping. Center tapping is reversing the polarity of the input waveform. Okay, that's why diode is conducting. And during negative half cycle, the advantage of center tap, again I can explain. See here, during negative half cycle, if center tapping is not present, then what happens? A will be negative and B, because it will be also negative, but it is less negative than A. So both diodes will be reverse bias. But because of center tapping, polarity is being reversed. Okay, A is negative. Okay, so that's why diode D2 is conducting and forward biased. That's why we are during negative half cycle, we are getting a positive peak. That is the advantage of center tapped full wave rectifier. And what is the difference between half wave and full wave? In half wave, we are using only one diode, but in full wave, we are using two diodes. Okay, and the disadvantage of full wave is center tapped, using of center tap, which is costly as compared to half wave, but we are getting a complete waveform. Okay, we are not losing any part of waveform. Okay, and this is full wave bridge rectifier. Okay, so bridge rectifier, we are using 4 diodes. 4 diodes because center tapping is a costly equipment, that is a disadvantage in full wave rectifier. So to eliminate that cost factor, we are going for bridge rectifier where 4 diodes are used, but center tapping is eliminated. Okay, so that is the advantage of bridge rectifier. Center tapping is eliminated and we are using 4 diodes, but we get the same output, same full wave output. So here you see, this is the construction, a circuit diagram of a full wave bridge rectifier. You can see here need for center tapped is eliminated and consists of 4 diodes instead of 2. And you can see during positive half cycle means here it is in the input waveform, it is represented as by 2, and the negative cycle is nothing but t by 2 to t. The complete time period of the sine wave is taken as 0 to t. Now we will learn the operation in terms of time period, that is 0 to t by 2 as positive half cycle and t by 2 to t as negative half cycle. Now we will see during 0 to t by 2, that is during positive half cycle. So during positive half cycle, what happens? You can see a down circuit diagram here, ma. See the namings here of the diodes D1, D2, D3, D4. Okay, in the upper side we are having D1, D2 and the downside diodes are represented as D3 and D4. So now here during positive half cycle, so the terminal it will be point A, you can say take it as point A. Here it is positive polarity and this positive polarity is given to diode D1 and D2, but D1 is in the opposite direction, so it is off and D2 is in the same direction as the polarity, so D2 is on and D3 is also on. So these two cross diodes are on, so they both are conducting during the cycle 0 to t by 2, that is half cycle. and diodes D1 and D4, the opposite diodes, are in the off state. So since these two diodes are conducting D2 and D3, you are getting the output positive peak as it is. Okay, instead of using center tapped, we are using an extra 2 diodes, but we are getting the same output. And next, in the next half cycle, that is during negative half cycle, that is t by 2 to t, during negative half cycle, the diodes D1 and D4 are conducting, whereas D2 and D3 are in the off state, that is these two are not conducting. So since these D1 and D4 are conducting, some amount of current flows through the load resistor and we are getting the same output, positive peak output during negative half cycle also. Okay, you can see in the output waveform t by 2 to t. So this is the complete output waveform of a full wave bridge rectifier. So during positive half cycle, diodes D2 and D3 are conducting, and during negative half cycle, D1 and D4 are conducting. So we are getting the same output as a full wave rectifier with the elimination of center tapped. So costly, so we are overcoming the disadvantage of full wave using a bridge rectifier. Only thing is we need 4 diodes for getting the output, full wave output waveform. And we are also having many advantages of this full wave output waveform because total 100% of the input waveform is rectifier, but it is not pure DC. On this output waveform, you can see a dotted line where it is written as DC. Actually, your pure DC will be like this, a straight line. But here we are getting a peaks kind of thing. So these peaks are also need to be removed. So these peaks are being removed by using filters. There are different filters that we have, capacitor filter, inductive filter, RL filter, etc. Rectifier unit, then you will get the pure DC. Okay. Have you all understood till here? Rectifiers. Hello? No problem, your net is also very high only. I don't know why my voice is breaking. Filter, RLC, etc. Many filters we have. You want to explain bridge rectifiers once again? Okay, ma, I'll explain. Okay, I'll explain full wave and bridge rectifier once again. Please listen, ma. See, this is nothing but center tapped full wave rectifier. So here in full wave rectifier, we are using two diodes. In half wave rectifier, we are using only one diode. Because of using only one diode in half wave, only 50% of the input waveform is being rectified. The negative half cycle, they are going for full wave, where the complete input waveform will be rectified. See how it is being happened. See the circuit diagram of a full wave rectifier. This is also called as center tapped. Center tap in the sense, the transformer, the step down transformer that we are using is tied load resistor, where the polarity of the input waveform will be altered for each and every cycle. Okay. So because of that, we are getting this full waveform in the output. You can see here all positive peaks are getting, you are getting all positive peaks only is a sine wave. Now we will see the operation. When input is given to the step down transformer, for the positive half cycle, what happens? Your point A. See, in the secondary of the transformer, 2 points are being marked, A and B. Observe those points, ma. So point A is positive, is placed at a more positive potential during positive half cycle, and point B is negative potential. So during this, what happens? Your diode D1 gets conducts because point A is maintained at a positive potential. So positive given to the anode of diode D1 conducts readily. So if it is conducting, some amount of current flows through the diode, that is taken across the load resistor RL, and you can see the direction of the current. Okay. Now, so because the current is flowing, you are getting the positive peak half cycle. Okay. Because this is because the diode D1. Now during negative half cycle, what happens? Because of the center tap, the polarity of the waveform will be reversed during negative half cycle. Now point A is maintained at negative potential and point B is maintained at a positive potential. So because of this, what happens? Diode D2 is forward bias, current will be flowing through the diode and it is taken across the load resistor RL. And both the currents due to the two diodes are in the same direction. So hence you are getting the output in the same direction. Diode D1, one positive cycle is because of diode D1, the other cycle is because of diode D2, like that. So this was not the case with half wave rectifier. In half wave rectifier, we have got only positive peaks. Negative peaks are being clamped to 0. But here the negative cycle is also being rectified and applied and available as a positive half cycle. Okay. So the complete cycle we are getting using a center tapped. Now we have a disadvantage of this center tapped full wave rectifier because this center tapping process is a bit costlier. So generally we are avoiding this. Okay, but you can get the same output using a full wave bridge rectifier without using a center tapped arrangement. How? Because by using 4 diodes. In full wave rectifier, we are using 2 diodes along with the center tapped, whereas full wave bridge rectifier, we are using 4 diodes and removing the concept of center tapped. So these 4 diodes will be helping us to get the same full wave output waveform with less cost. Okay, how we will see now. See, for the input sinusoidal signal, we are considering it as on the time period basis. The complete period of this cycle is taken as 0 to t, and one positive half cycle is taken as 0 to t by 2, and negative half cycle is taken as t by 2 to t. So there are 4 diodes. The upper part of the diodes are termed as D1, D2, and the lower part of the diodes are termed as D3 and D4. Okay, now we will see the operation of a bridge rectifier. See here, during positive half cycles, what happens? The point, this node, during the upper node of diode D1 and D2 is maintained at a positive polarity, and the down node is maintained as a negative polarity. So because of this positive polarity, what happens? Diode D2 and D3 are conducting. See, you can see the arrow direction of the current flow. You can see the arrow direction. So diode D2 and D3 are conducting, whereas the polarity is opposite to the diodes D1 and D4. So these two diodes are not conducting. They are acting as an open circuit, whereas diode D2 and D3 are acting as a short circuit. So the current will be flowing only through these diodes, that is D2 and D3, which is shown in the path in the circuit diagram. So you are getting the output waveform as a positive half cycle. Okay. During negative half cycle, what happens? Diodes D1 and D4 are conducting, and the other two diodes D2 state. You can also see the current direction. The path is shown in the circuit diagram. Okay. Now, so because flow, when you take the output across the load resistor RL, the output is in the same positive half cycle, because the polarity of the output current flowing through load RL is in the same direction. The arrangement is done in such a way that the current direction is same in both the cycles. That's why you are getting the output positive peak only during negative half cycle of the input signal. Okay, so during positive half cycle, diodes D1, D2 and D3 are conducting, whereas during negative half, see the output waveform like this. Okay, when you see the complete waveform, you are getting it like this. Bad waveform. We want only the dotted lines. See here, you can see a dotted line on the output waveform, which is written as VDC. Okay, only a straight line we want if you want a pure DC. So this pure DC will not be obtained by using rectifiers. We need to use filters. So when you pass this rectified output through a filter, you will get a pure DC. That is what actually we are using it in our appliances and all, like in power supply units. Okay. So is it okay now? Now Rajita madam will continue the class. So Rajita madam will revise to she. Madam, Rajita madam.
Available. Just you stop sharing. I'll do my PPT on.
Hello,
Hello,
Rajita ma'am.
ma'am. Am I audible or not?
I'm stopping. Yes, ma'am, it is audible. You continue, ma'am. I'm stopping.
Good evening, students. Yes, ma'am. This is Rajita. Uh, so today's session is Unit 2 revision. So bipolar junction transistor. As you already heard about this, so take just a brief review on your bipolar junction transistor. In the tomorrow session, we are going to learn about your biasing techniques. Okay. So today we'll learn about so what are the types of your BJTs. Next, we will move to our configurations and its characteristics. What are the parameters in each and every configuration? Okay. Right. So now let I move to our first slide. So now, so these are the objectives are of our unit 2. So which can describes your basic structure of your bipolar junction transistor, as well as we wanted to analyze your basic transistor biasing as well as its operation. Next, discussing the parameters and the characteristics of each and every configuration and how they are applied in your practical applications. So that we are going to learn in your session. Okay, right. Next, so now in order to introduce your BJT, just we'll take an analog example that simple analogous this tap water tap is an analogous operation to your transistor where it is having three terminals. One will be the inlet, the other one will be your outlet. So and another one will be your control unit, which is your a switch which we have placed here, a screw which can be tied, which can be on. So in order to have that flow of water, and it should be in off state. So then we have a we doesn't have any flow of water from that outlet. So in the same manner, so it gives your logic. If you have a water flow, so then it might be logical one. So let me analogous to your flow of current. So there is a flow of current if your transistor is in on state. So if there is no flow of water from a tap or from a if I analogous to your transistor, if there is no flow of current, then that is treated as a logical zero. So hence you can use your transistor as a digital logical gate, which can give the two states of output. One will be the logical one, the other one will be the logical zero. Not only for digital applications, we could also use this transistor as an amplifier. So in order to have these applications, how it could act like an amplifier, how it could act like an switch. So how it could act like an on switch or a off switch, so that we are going to learn it today. Okay, right. So now a small changes in the wall position can give you a logic flow of water, or it can stop the flow of water from a tap. So in the same manner, the applied amount of voltages on your base terminal or your one of the terminal of your transistor can have a large amount of current, and if it doesn't give the proper amount of voltages within the limits, so within the cut-in voltages, then if I doesn't apply that, so then there is no flow of current from a transistor. Now, so let me move to your actual concept. So this is analogous, just we have just given. So your wall is the control element, so which I treated in your transistor is a base, and your inlet is the emitter terminal, where your outlet is your tap is your collector terminal. Okay, right. So now applied amount of a proper amount of voltages in between the base and emitter, so can give the amount of flow of current from its collector terminal. Okay, right. So this is about your BJT. So which is, so from this point, so we analyze your transistor is a three terminal, three layer device and bijunctional transistor. So what are the three terminals is base, collector, emitter. Next, what are the three regions? As we have already given that terminals as base, emitter and collector, those regions are treated as emitter region, base region, as well as its collector region. And I said your bipolar junction transistor is a bijunction. We can also call this as a bijunctional transistor. Why? Because means we have two NPN junctions are available in your transistor. So one at the input side, the other one is at the output side. Okay, so input junction in a transistor is in between base and emitter, and output junction in a transistor is in between collector and base. Now coming to the area which is occupying by this three region, that we have to learn it. Okay, right. So and as well as based on the doping techniques also, so we have this regions of classification. So now emitter occupies the moderate space, where base occupies the very less space compared to the three regions, and the collector occupies the more space in a transistor. So your emitter region occupies the moderate space, as well as your basis occupies less space, and your collector occupies the more space. So these are the areas which is occupied by the each region in a transistor. So I'll repeat once again. Emitter occupies moderate space, base occupies less space, and collector occupies more space. Next, coming to the doping. So what is the doping is, just in order to have the extrinsic semiconductor, we have to impure the pure semiconductor device using some impurities. So those impurities, based on the impurities, are you going to impure your pure semiconductor using your trivalent impurities or pentavalent impurities? Your extrinsic semiconductor is classified into p-type or n-type material, right? So now if I use the trivalent impurities, so like your gallium arsenide or phosphorus, these are the some of the examples for pentavalent impurities. If I use those, and if I impure that with your pure semiconductor which comes under your fourth group element, silicon or germanium, so you could have the n-type material. Next, the p-type material can be formed by using your trivalent impurities like your boron, aluminum. So those boron and aluminum elements can be added with your silicon or your germanium, then we could form a p-type material. So now these transistors are manufactured using a ground junction method or epitaxial layer method. So we would have this three region and we would have the difference. So in order to make each region, we would have the regions of dopings must be differ. So here the emitter region, the input region. So hence, so the electrons or the free charge carriers will move from this emitter region. Hence, it must be doped heavily. So emitter region must be doped heavily and base region must be doped lightly, and your collector region must be doped moderately. Okay, so as we need to transfer the charge carriers from emitter to collector terminal, hence our emitter region must be doped heavily. So the impurity concentration is more in emitter region, whereas the impurity concentration is less in base region, and the impurity concentration in your collector region is moderately in between your base or your emitter regions. Okay, so these are the three regions of your transistor: emitter, base, as well as its collector, and the doping. So how it is doped, each terminal or each region, how it is doped. Okay, so next, based on, so which type of material you are going to utilize in your emitter as well as in collector and base, we have classified our transistor into two types: NPN transistor and PNP transistor. Now, so we would have here the two junctions, and those two junctions are available in between the emitter base as well as the collector to base. Emitter to base junction is the input junction and collector to base junction is the output junction. Okay, right. So now based on the material which you are going to utilize in your each region, so we have classified your transistor into two types. So if we have two N regions which are separated by a P region, that is called as NPN transistor. If we have two P regions which are separated by a N region, that is called as a PNP transistor. And you are, or you are going to see this. These are the structures. So which I am just indicating over here, and these are the electronic symbols which we are going to use in your laboratory. So for the identification of your NPN as well as your PNP transistor. Okay, so these are the electronic symbols which we are going to utilize in your to draw your circuits. So we have to differ your NPN and PNP transistor using these two symbols. Always remember, so the horizontal line which indicated on the symbol is the base terminal, and you have two inclined lines which are defined with the collector and emitter, where always the arrow, the inclined line will have a arrow which identifies say emitter terminal, which identifies say it is a, so that arrow indicates the conventional current direction. So always if it is a NPN transistor, your current is flowing from base to emitter, and here PNP transistor, so the current is flowing inside that base terminal, so from emitter to base. Okay, so in order to differentiate your color NPN and PNP transistor, we use this arrow symbols at the emitter terminal. Okay, so if it is outside, then it must be a NPN. If it is inside that transistor, then it must be a PNP transistor. Okay, right. Next. So now, so this is your one technique of epitaxial planar structure of your transistor, which we have taken one substrate, one silicon substrate we have taken, and initially that silicon substrate must be etched with the etched. So some of the material of silicon substrate must be etched, so it must be removed, and in that space we have to impure that semiconductor device with your pentavalent impurities. Then after again we have to impure that semiconductor with your if it is a NPN transistor, collector must be of N type. If it is a base must be a P type. Hence, we have to impure with the trival impurities. Thereafter, we have the abel. So you could have see this difference between the regions of operation. So regions of your each terminal. So emitter region occupies the moderate space, where base occupies with a very less space compared to with your emitter or the collector, and whereas collector occupies the more space. Okay, now this image shows the practical transistor available in our lab, so which is in the state of IC, as well as in the state of your discs. We have it with a 3 terminal, and there is an extra additional element which is on the cap of this, so which we call as a notch. So from the notch terminal, so your the immediate terminal must be a emitter, and in an anti-clockwise direction, the next terminal after emitter must be a base and collector. Okay, right. Next, so now just we'll imagine that already we have concluded with our first unit, PN junction diode. So just for the understanding purpose, just we will assume that two diodes are connected in a series fashion. So now this is your PNP transistor, and this is your second one will be the NPN transistor. But after, if I connect these two diodes as in series, I can't form a NPN transistor or a PNP transistor, since your doping levels are different in each region. I can't form a NPN or PNP transistor. So by just connecting these two diodes in series. Okay, right. So now, so here we have an input junction in between your emitter to base, and base to collector is the output junction. In your NPN also, the input junction, one PN junction is available between base to emitter, another PN junction, the second PN junction is at the output junction is available between your collector to base junction. Next, these are the current directions in your NPN as well as in the PNP transistor. So emitter current and base current as well as the collector. Always remember, if I apply the KCL current, Kirchhoff's current law, so here amount of emitted current is the sum of your base current as well as the collector current. And if I apply the KVL, Kirchhoff's voltage law, then amount of voltage in between the emitter and collector is the sum of the voltages between your emitter to base as well as your base to collector. Next, I'll move to your next PPT, which will give you the basic idea about the characteristics of your transistor, how it is operated. Okay, basic transistor operation. So now, so this is your this gives you the total idea about your operation of the transistor, which configuration, so how many configurations we have, and their characteristics of each configuration. Now, to operate your transistor properly, the two PN junction must be biased properly, so using your external DC signal. So until unless we apply or we just cancel that barrier potential in between the input junction and output junction, no carrier will move from your emitter terminal to the collector terminal. Hence, we have to apply a proper biasing voltages in order to transfer the charge carriers from your emitter to collector terminal. Okay, right. So now, so these are the two images which we have given. So on your one with the first one will be your PNP transistor, NPN transistor, and the second one will be the PNP transistor. Now, so base to emitter junction, and your input junction, where base to collector junction is your output junction. Here also base to emitter junction is the input, and base to collector junction is the output. So now, in order to apply a proper biasing on input, so we have to forward bias your input junction and reverse bias your output junction. So on your PNP also forward bias your input junction using your external DC signal. So next reverse bias your output junction using the second in additional source which you are going to utilize here for to reverse bias your output junction. So let me name this as a VEE, whereas this we name it as a VCC. Now, so why to reverse bias your output junction, and why we prefer the forward bias, for why we have to forward bias your input junction, that will give you while I can explain your operation of the transistor. Okay, so always remember, so now I said, so practical applications of your transistor is it can be utilized as a logical switch which can give you output of 1 and 0, as well as it can also be used as an amplifier. So in order to use your transistor as an amplifier, so or the charge carriers which are transferred from your emitter to collector, it has to be multiplied with some beta factor or some gain factor. So in order to do that, so we have to forward bias your input junction and reverse bias your output junction. Okay, so now based on the biasings, your input and output, whether you're going to forward bias your input or your output junction is reverse bias or forward bias, we have four regions of operations. The first region of operation is cutoff. When you apply the reverse bias on both junctions of your transistor, input and output junction, then the transistor is operated under cutoff region. Why it is operated under cutoff region? In cutoff region, there is no amount of flow of current, since you're going to apply the reverse bias on both junctions. When you apply a reverse bias on both junctions, there is no carrier movement from either of the input terminal to the output terminal. If there is no flow of current, then the transistor is treated as a off switch. So in a logical applications, digital logical applications, so you could use your transistor in cutoff region in order to implement a off state device. So logical zero we can obtain by just making your input junction reverse as well as your output junction reverse. As I already said, so if I wanted to use that as an amplifier, so output junction must be reverse biased and input junction must be forward biased. Now immediately if I wanted to use as a logical off switch, so then immediately I have to apply a reverse bias on your input junctions. Then both junctions become reverse bias, then your transistor will be moved into the cutoff region. Hence here, so first region of operation is cutoff region. Second region of operation, when your forward bias your input and the output junction is reverse bias. Then amplifier, it can be utilized as an amplifier and it can be operated under active region. So the carriers are multiplied with a factor of your gain. So hence so the charge carriers will move from your emitter to collector region, and then we have the multiplication of your carriers which are collected at the collector terminal in a transistor if it is operated under as an amplifier. And when you apply this, can happen only when the base to emitter junction and collector to base junction are, base to emitter junction is forward bias and collector to base junction is reverse bias. Now, so here when I wanted to use your transistor as a logical one switch or a if I wanted to have the logical one state on a digital gates, so then both junctions must be forward bias. So then the transistor is operated under your saturation region. So next, the last region of operation is your so inverted active region, where it is not at all used in practically. So let me imagine, okay, this is an imaginary region where base to emitter junction is reverse biased and collector to base junction must be forward biased. So that is an imaginary active region, okay, or inverted. We could say that this is an inverted active region. Okay, right. So these are the four regions of operations based on the biasing. Why we wanted to bias here transistor is, since we have two junctions, if we properly bias those two junctions, or if we nullify the barrier potential in between those two junctions, then only the charge carriers will move from your input emitter terminal to the collector terminal. So you can collect the output from its collector terminal. So hence we have to bias using your DC signals. Okay, right. Next. So this is a basic transistor operation which I can explain using your NPN transistor. Now I took NPN transistor, hence this is my emitter region and this is my collector region, and in between those two regions we would have a base region which have a very less space. This is the actual physical size of this base region, but due to this applied biasing on input and output junction can cause the reduction in the base width. So the effective base width is very less compared to the physical base width of your NPN transistor because of the biasing of the transistor when you apply a forward bias on your input and reverse bias on your output junction. So now you just carefully observe your depletion layer width is very less at the input junction, where the depletion layer width is more at the output junction. Since your base to emitter junction is forward bias using this DC supply, whereas your output junction between your collector to base junction is reverse bias using this DC supply. Hence here the barrier is more in your collector to base junction, so at this output junction, whereas the barrier is very less at your input junction. So now if I'm going on increasing this input junction voltage, this almost at a point of cut-in voltage, which is silicon, for a silicon it must be 0.6, for a 0.6 to 0.7, and for a germanium it must be a 0.2 to 0.3 volts. After this cut-in voltage, so your barrier is nullified. When the barrier is nullified, if I'm going on increasing my input junction voltage, then the charge carriers will move from your emitter terminal and will enter into the base terminal. So then which constitute a current called as base current, and it is identified as, or it is represented with IB. So next, so only few amount of charge carriers can constitute your the base current, and the remaining charge carriers which are emitted from the emitter can be pulled out from by this opposite polarities. Actually we have given a reverse bias, so this positive electrode can pull out the charge carriers which are, let I take this as NPN. So in your emitter region we have the electrons which we have in an n-type material. So the majority carriers are electrons, the minority carriers are holes in your n-type emitter terminal, whereas in base, so the majority carriers are of, it is a NPN, so the majority carriers are of holes, and minority charge carriers are your electrons, and in collector region the majority carriers are of electrons and the minority charge carriers are of holes. Now, so whenever this emit the charge carriers which are the electrons which can swept your input junction and entered into the base junction, they might um, they can constitute the current which is termed as a base current, and the leftover electrons, so which are there, so which become the minority charge carriers in your base region, but when it is coming into your collector region, that become the majority carriers. So and these carriers will be pulled out from the base region, since your collector to base junction is revised bias by using this high reverse voltages. So this positive electrode can pull out the electrons which can come out from its collector terminal, which can constitute the amount of collector current IC. So like this, so amount of emitted carriers from its emitter is the sum of base current as well as the collector current. Since that we are, when I just shown that in the previous slide, IE is always, it is equal to the sum of its base current as well as its collector current. Now in order to protect your base region as well as your collector region, just we used here a series resistances RB as well as your RC. So now, so which require a very small amount of voltages, but after applying, so due to your supply fluctuations, might it will damage your device. Hence we use the resistors, series resistors, the base resistance RB, and at the collector terminal we use your RC. Okay, right, like this. So you can we could have a collector current from its transistor after properly biasing your transistor junctions. So input junction forward and output junction reverse. Right. So the base region, or as I said, it is a lightly doped one. So now the carriers which are available is very less. Hence, it constitutes a very less amount of current, whereas the collector region is more compared to your, the region of collector is more, as well, since it is moderately doped, and the entered amount of carriers which can swept from your input junction and allowed into the output junction, or your output junction which can be allowed by this supply voltage which can be applied at your output junction, supply voltage VCC, can pull out those electrons. So due to that, so the IC is more compared to your the base current. Hence approximately we will define that emitter current is approximately equal to the collector current, where the base current is in the range of micro to nano amps, and the IC is in the range of your milliamps as like your emitter current. So IC is approximately equal to IE if we neglect your base current IB. Next, few recombined your electrons can flow through your base leads, and valence electrons forming your small base electron current. So next, most of the electrons from your emitter diffuses into your base to collector depletion layer due to that external supply voltage which is connected at the output junction. So once in this region, they are pulled through the reverse biased base to collector junction by the electric field set up by the force of your attraction between your positive and negative. Next, once in this region, if they are pulled out through the reverse biased base junction, the electric field will be set up by the force of your attraction between your positive as well as your negative. So now the electrons now move through your collector region out through the collector lead into the positive terminal of the collector voltage. So this is analogous to your PNP transistor operation. So here I explained your electrons are the majority carriers, whereas in PNP transistor it must be just just opposite to that. So there the instead of electrons, so you would have the hole current. Next, so always the collector current is equal to base current. So as I said, emitter current is equal to sum of your base current and your collector current, where IB is in the range of microamps to nanoamps, IC is in the range of your milliamps, as well as your IE also. Okay, Nana. So this is about your basic operation of your transistor. So in the next class, we're going to discuss about, or we are going to review, we have a revision about your configurations as well as your biasing techniques which we have, and what are the advantages and disadvantages. Do you have any doubts? Okay, let me wind up for today. Okay, tomorrow we will discuss about the configurations as well as your biasing techniques and which biasing technique is more preferable out of the three. Okay, right. So if you're done with this, so you could log out and tomorrow we'll continue. Okay. As we would have, so some of your student ask you that why we need the biasing. So as we does, if we doesn't give any biasing on your input or output junction, there is no flow of current from its input terminal to output terminal. So hence we need the biasing. Okay, so that the DC signal what you apply on your input and output junction is defined as the biasing. So applying the DC signals and properly biasing your input and output junction can cause the flow of current from its input terminal to the output terminal. Okay, if it doesn't give any biasing on that input junction, it will be ideal like a passive element. It doesn't amplify your signal, or it doesn't give you the output of logical one, or it doesn't give you output of your logical zero. Okay, it will be a passive device. Okay, it won't be termed as a active. So just we will give the name as a, if it doesn't give any biasing to that, so simply it will give the high resistance, so there is no flow of current from either of the input emitter to the output terminals. Okay, is it clear? So this is the need of the biasing. So if we are properly bias it, then only the charge carriers will move from one terminal to the input terminal to the output terminal. As we know that your transistor is having a input terminal is emitter and output terminal is your collector. Okay, right? Clear? Yes, we will share the PPTs, Nana. Don't worry about that. So you could have that PPTs in your KMIT online website. Okay. For today's session, I'll wind up it. Okay.